incident took place on Sunday in Costa Rica. He was on a family vacation. He was swimming off of the coast of a town called Cocles in the province of Limon. He was swimming at Playa Grande. I mean, I've visited Costa Rica a few times. I was there with my family a few years ago, and those currents can be very strong.
We all heard Eddie Griffin's voice tremble, but not from grief. There was something else in the way he spoke about Malcolm Jamal Warner, something that sent chills down our spines. When he called Warner a warrior, when he said they went to war against the Hollywood machine, he wasn't reminiscing, he was revealing. And if you've been paying attention to how this industry treats outspoken Black artists who try to step outside the script, then you already know this wasn't just a loss. This felt like a warning shot.
I mean, when I was on the show and we had such good times together, I was probably 18 and Malcolm was probably 17, 16, I don't know. And we would take walks together, all of us, and pick up food, talk, played basketball, hung out on the weekends, went to parties together. He was so...
Griffin didn't name names. He didn't have to. We caught it in every word. Brother, teacher, director, friend. Then warrior. He didn't just say they fought in the business, he said they fought against it. You don't talk about a sitcom co-star like that unless the bond was forged in battle. And the battlefield in this case is decades deep. The same murky war waged in silence against Black entertainers who dared to challenge the narratives, who talked legacy, who wouldn't stay in their lane. Griffin's tribute didn't read like a eulogy. It read like a debrief.
NBC News has just confirmed that actor Malcolm Jamal Warner has died at the age of 54. Authorities in Costa Rica telling NBC News that Warner accidentally drowned while swimming in the ocean on Sunday. Warner is best known for, of course, his Emmy-nominated role.
So when news of Warner's sudden drowning hit headlines, we didn't just gasp, we held our breath. Because this isn't the first time we've seen tragedy framed as accident right after someone speaks a little too loudly. Warner wasn't partying. He wasn't cliff diving or deep sea swimming. He was at the beach with his wife and daughter, just trying to unplug. Costa Rica, on a sleepy Sunday afternoon. It was supposed to be a peaceful getaway, and then, as the official report reads, swept away by a current. Just like that. The type of line that feels too neat, too polished. The kind of phrasing that appears only when someone wants it to disappear quickly. But there's nothing tidy about this story, not when you zoom in on the so-called rescue attempt. Authorities say a second man went into the water to try and save Warner. That man, a 29-year-old from Nicaragua. Unrelated to Warner, not a family member, not a friend, and not identified. He appears in no photos, he hasn't spoken, he was in critical condition, then discharged just days later. And we're told he's fine now, stable, even. Great recovery considering he nearly drowned in the same water. No press conference, no interviews, just gone. Which begs the question, who was he really? A local beachgoer? A hired hand? A bystander with oddly precise timing? Because while Warner was pulled out of the water, lifeless after 20 minutes of CPR, this second man was whisked away in an ambulance, kept completely anonymous, and then released. Authorities confirmed he had no personal connection to Warner. So why was he in the water at all? And why does it feel like we've heard this story before? Too many times.
Just wanted to remind you, as I remind myself, that no matter what's going on, there's always a reason to smile. Like if you just take a minute to stop and take stock, I guarantee you can find at least one reason to smile. And if for some reason you can't find a reason to smile, then that's probably the best time to be the reason for somebody else to smile.
This isn't wild conspiracy for the sake of YouTube headlines. The reason this hits so hard is because we've seen it over and over, from Prince to Sam Cooke, from Michael Jackson to Bobby Christina, Black artists who had more to say than music or scripts allowed, who started asking the wrong questions, pushing the wrong boundaries, and then vanished. A sudden medical event, a freak accident, a current no one saw coming. It's the pattern that haunts the corners of Hollywood, the unspoken rule, speak truth, and risk everything. And Warner, he wasn't just reminiscing about the Huxtables in interviews. He was asking why Black families on screen had become caricatures again. He was critiquing media narratives. And most boldly, he launched Not All Hood, a podcast that refused to play it safe. Just weeks before his passing, he told people that the show would explore the many facets of the Black experience, not just the marketable ones. He was diving into taboos, mental wellness, the romanticization of culture, the historical weight of being Black in America. We wanted to have a space, he said, where we can really explore, discuss, and acknowledge. A space that, by all accounts, didn't sit well with the powers that be.
What's good? Yes, I got the flower in my hair. Today's my daughter's birthday. She put the flower there, so I'm rocking it. What? It's a beautiful day here in Atlanta. I just wanted to shout out and just spread some love and some good cheer. And you know, life is out here lifing, right? For me and for everybody else. But
see, that podcast wasn't just a creative project. It was a platform, and Warner knew exactly what it meant to have one. He spoke about legacy constantly. His marriage, his daughter, even his relationship with Bill Cosby's complicated shadow. He tackled it all with precision. He knew how the industry viewed him. He knew his image had become safe, and he was about to change that. He wasn't trying to play America's little brother anymore. He was aiming higher. So when Griffin says warrior, we hear whistleblower. When he says they went to war with the Hollywood machine, we hear resistance. Quiet, long-running, and dangerous, not a metaphor, a mission. And that's why so many fans and insiders are now staring at Warner's Costa Rica trip like it wasn't just a vacation, but maybe something far more chilling. Why that nameless rescuer, the man no one can seem to find, is starting to look more like a puzzle piece than a hero. Why even the calm ocean feels complicit.
Really was a multi-decade career in Hollywood, spanning several different shows. I did a little bit of research before this, and he had about 84 credits on his resume before passing away at just 54 years old. And TMZ also obtained photo, possibly the last photo of him that we may even have ever seen on TMZ.com at the airport on July 13th coming into Costa Rica. It's just so tragic to look at that photo and think that just a week later he'd be passing away.
And as more people revisit Warner's last few interviews, they're noticing the urgency in his voice. He wasn't just reflecting, he was planting seeds. In that final stretch, Warner seemed determined to confront the machinery behind the image. He talked openly about the limits of fame, the erasure of nuance, the way Black voices get boxed in, commodified, and silenced. He even said his podcast gave him a place to be vulnerable, words that now feel hauntingly final. Even the location feels strange. Playa Grande, Cahuita, beautiful, remote, and not exactly easy to monitor. For someone who spent a lifetime in the public eye, Warner was in a place where no security cameras, no paparazzi, no cell reception could capture what really happened. And maybe that's why the official story has been so quick, so clean, so quiet, declared lifeless. Cause of passing, asphyxia by submersion. Full autopsy completed, nothing to see here. But if you've spent any time in this town, you know, silence often screams the loudest.
So unbelievable there. And Branson, I also was reading that just days ago, he had another podcast episode that was dropped, and now a lot of fans are starting to really listen to that as maybe one of his last times that you hear him.
And still, there's that detail we can't shake. That Warner had just begun speaking his truth louder than ever weeks before this so-called accident. That Not All Hood wasn't just a show about culture. It was peeling back the layers of media exploitation and identity. That Warner wasn't shy about legacy and was very clear he wanted to leave something that mattered. Something that couldn't be edited, rewritten, or brushed aside by producers, which is why this doesn't feel like a chapter ending. It feels like a page ripped out mid-sentence. Because we were just starting to see the version of Malcolm Jamal Warner that Hollywood never quite gave us permission to know, the one who challenged systems, who chose truth over nostalgia, who built something new even while standing on the bones of a show that shaped television forever. And now, that voice has been quieted in a foreign country, under suspicious timing, surrounded by unanswered questions, a missing identity, and one very public tribute that sounded more like a coded call to arms.
Yes, obviously so heartbreaking. Such a tragedy. Here in the office, so many Cosby Show fans of this wonderful actor, and he had a very long career even after the show that he was known for.
That idea of leading something that mattered wasn't just poetic, it was revolutionary, because in Hollywood, legacy isn't granted, it's managed, sanitized, or quietly erased. And when a Black entertainer dares to seize that narrative on their own terms, the room gets tense. Warner wasn't just reminiscing about the Huxtables, he was challenging the narrow lanes the industry still hands to Black creatives. His podcast wasn't safe, soft content. It was sharp, uncomfortable, unapologetically layered. He dissected exploitation dressed as entertainment, called out the media's love affair with monoliths, and reminded everyone listening that vulnerability is a form of rebellion when the system expects your silence. Not All Hood wasn't just another celebrity vanity project. It was platform building in the most threatening way possible. Warner dove into the mental health crisis within the Black community, a topic still treated like a whispered taboo in Hollywood press junkets. He called out how culture gets lifted, stripped of roots, then sold back like it was born in a boardroom. He challenged how trauma gets commodified for views, but never healed. It wasn't about ratings, it was about restoring balance. And that makes you a target, because the machine doesn't mind if you entertain as long as you don't educate.
We show, and Theo's character in particular.
Yeah. And he moved around with such integrity,
Yes.
and he is very intentional about the roles that he took.
Exactly right.
His legacy is going to last forever. He will be missed. Our love goes out to his family, and our thoughts and prayers. Jericka, thank you.
Eddie Griffin seemed to know exactly how dangerous that was. His tribute reads like a coded dossier for those who can hear between the lines. We went to war with the Hollywood machine. He didn't say Warner tried, he said they did. Past tense. Finished business. But who really called it finished? That word warrior doesn't show up for sitcoms and press tours. It shows up when you've taken hits, crossed lines, and kept fighting anyway. And now, here we are. One warrior down with a battle no one in the industry dares admit exists. And yet, the pattern refuses to stay buried. Because when we step back and look, not just at Warner, but at what's come before, it's hard not to notice how often outspoken entertainers vanish beneath the waves. Accidental drowning, a phrase we've heard too many times. Naya Rivera, found in Lake Peru after saving her son. Whitney Houston, submerged in a Beverly Hills hotel bathtub hours before her Grammy party. Her daughter, Bobby Christina, in another bathtub, another media storm. Aaron Carter, Dolores O'Riordan, even Natalie Wood if we stretch the clock back. So many unfortunate aquatic incidents, so few consistent explanations.
Turning now to a Hollywood tragedy, we're all trying to process this. Of course, we're talking about the death of actor Malcolm Jamal Warner. He is just 54 years old. Officials say that he drowned while on vacation with his family. He was in Costa Rica at the time.
And now Malcolm Jamal Warner, on a beach in Costa Rica, swept by a current no one saw, aided by a rescuer no one knows. It's almost formulaic, the remote location, the lack of cameras, the anonymity of bystanders, authorities quick to confirm it was accidental. All tidy, all checked boxes, but if it looks like a pattern, walks like a pattern, and silences like a pattern, what do we call it? Industry insiders have whispered for years that some entertainers don't leave Hollywood, they get erased from it, gently, quietly, neatly, through methods that don't leave bruises, just obituaries, accidents, medical events, natural causes, the preferred exits for those who raised the volume too high, for artists who refused to play along. Warner wasn't just beloved, he was informed, intentional, and increasingly bold. And in an industry that thrives on control, that's more threatening than any headline-grabbing scandal.
What do you want people to remember about him?
Oh boy, he was never afraid to go to his room and study and make sure he followed whatever he had learned in the acting school.
Even more chilling is the unspoken weight Warner carried as one of the last public torchbearers of The Cosby Show, a series that once redefined what it meant to be Black and successful on American television. While its creator's name has been scorched and discarded, the cultural legacy of the Huxtables refuses to vanish. And for years, Warner walked that tightrope, honoring the good while distancing himself from the bad. It wasn't easy, but unlike others, he didn't run from the show's impact. He embraced it as part of his origin story. And in doing so, he may have painted a target on his back once again. Because while The Cosby Show once offered the rare image of an educated, loving Black family in primetime, that imagery has become inconvenient. There's a growing silence in Hollywood around the show's achievements, as if acknowledging its influence means absolving the man behind it. But Warner wasn't trying to sanitize Cosby's actions. He was trying to preserve what the show meant to millions. And that kind of reclamation threatens the machine's desire to erase messy legacies completely. It's easier to burn it all down than admit that a flawed creator still birthed something revolutionary.
In terms of the things that continue to perpetuate the negative stereotype of people of color, we've always had The Cosby Show to hold up against that.
Warner's continued public pride in the show, his frequent reflections on its cultural importance, his defense of its role in inspiring generations of Black professionals, was a bold, nuanced stance in a time of binary narratives. It made him a rare figure, someone who wouldn't let the machine reduce the show to a scandal footnote. And for a Hollywood desperate to reshape the record, that kind of resistance can be infuriating. Warner didn't just remember the legacy, he embodied it. He kept it alive and he reminded audiences of what had been taken from them. That legacy was more than nostalgia. It was a blueprint. And Warner, through his later work, was trying to show that the blueprint still mattered. In his roles as a father, as a podcaster, as a cultural thinker, he was evolving what the Huxtables started, not by imitating Cosby, but by elevating the next version. That evolution represented continuity, And continuity is dangerous when the industry wants closure. If Warner was allowed to keep growing, keep building on that past, then The Cosby Show would never really fade. It would morph. It would survive.
Historic and frozen in time as this iconic character. What did that mean for television, and what does it still mean to this day?
Sam, Theo Huxtable was me. Theo Huxtable was my brothers. Theo Huxtable was the first time someone that looked like me saw someone that looked like himself on television. He was the epitome of what we as kids, in a certain community were growing up.
And maybe that's exactly what some forces didn't want. Because the show, in its heyday, challenged stereotypes too effectively. It cracked open the idea of what Black success could look like on screen. And now, with Warner gone, the last living link to its essence feels severed. Not erased, but dimmed. And we're left wondering, was his refusal to disown the show's meaning the final act of rebellion that made him expendable in a system that buries what it can't control? What's even more disturbing is the echo we hear now in Griffin's words. That subtle suggestion that dignity for Black performers isn't something Hollywood lets you leave with. Griffin didn't just mourn his friend. He seemed to mourn the chance of anyone getting out clean, sometimes with each other, because that's what brothers do, he wrote. And yet, even in that rawness, there's a coded truth. They were surrounded, fighting battles that stretched beyond casting calls and streaming contracts.
I hate to bring up the sad news, but news did break today of the untimely passing of Malcolm Jamal Warner.
I can't believe it.
So we asked, if Warner had gone quiet, would he still be here? If he'd stuck to sitcoms and surface-level interviews, would this accident have happened? It's not about paranoia, it's about history. The kind of history that rarely makes it into Variety or gets quoted at the Emmys. The kind that gets erased from scripts before the cameras roll. And that leads us right back to that tribute. You taught me so much, Griffin said, not just about acting, about resistance, about courage, about the cost. When we listen to that post, when we see the pain behind the praise, it starts to sound like a warning, maybe even a plea, because Warner didn't just drown in Costa Rica. He vanished at a moment when he was building something that could have changed narratives, not just for himself, for all of us. And now, we're left staring at a silence that doesn't feel natural, a final episode that feels cut short, a legacy paused mid-sentence. So we're asking, is this the price of truth in Hollywood? And if it could happen to Malcolm Jamal Warner, who's next? Drop your thoughts below and stay aware, stay bold, stay watching. We'll see you on the next one.